Okay, first of all, thank you for the invitation. Now I'm going to present a practical case. We're running the deposit system in Norway. Infintum is a private-owned value chain company. It's owned 50-50 by the producer and retailer. We had 1.2 billion cans and PET bottles in 2018, 22,000 tons of PET. We are now investing 200 million Norwegian crowns to building up a recycling plant at our main facility at Heia, outside Festsund. Today we could supply 80% recycled content in all bottles in Norway, and cans actually. But the level of recycled content is around 10 to 15%. It's too low. One simple reason is cheaper to buy virgin plastic than to buy collected recycled. Even if the environmental efficiency to recycle plastic is tremendous. I'm coming back to that as well. But this has to do with the circular economy. As some before me has mentioned as well, it's difficult when you collect and you should actually reuse the material because it's very environmentally efficient. Still, we don't manage to do it because it's cheaper to buy virgin material. 9,000 tons of aluminium, that's recycled at Hydro Holmestrand. So we actually the only deposit system in the Nordic and Baltic country that has recycling of the aluminium nationally. So we are proud of that as well. We claim to be the world's best deposit system. We had 24 different countries have visited us now and looked into how we do the operation in Norway for the last 2 years. It started in January 2017. The reason is that the setup in Norway, the company is owned by the producer and retailer and has been that since 1999, in 20 years actually. 3rd of May 1999 we started operation. And we have had full support from the producer and retailer since the start, and therefore we also have a very cost-efficient system. We can document the highest collection rate, well documented, to the lowest cost per unit, and that's important when you work into this. If you go back in time, all countries around the world, they have take-back system for the empties because it was glass bottle refillable, and they were so expensive to produce, so you need to take them back, wash them, and fill them up again with beverages. But then you have a development. As for a lot of other different areas, the production was so efficient, so now you can stop reusing. You can shift from refillable to non-refillable because it was so cheap to produce one-way glass bottle and refillable bottles. So all around the world, the producer claimed, no, it's no deposit anymore, it's no return, so now we can just throw it away. And that's been the situation for the last 3-4 decades. That people has been educated that you don't need to take it back anymore, you can just throw it away because we make a new one. And I think that's go for a lot of product, and that's maybe the biggest problem we had with plastic. It's so cheap to produce virgin plastic that we don't bother to use what we already have produced. If you have a PET bottle, when you produce it, and everyone said you can incinerate it and take out the energy from the bottle, but the energy in the bottle, 20% is from the oil or gas that you produce the bottle. 80% of the energy is when you convert gas into plastic. When you burn the PET bottle or you burn plastic, then you lose all the energy used to convert from gas to plastic. That's why you always should actually reuse plastic as long as you have designed the plastic for recycling. But this is what's happened all around the world. But in Norway, we had deposit system since 1902, and we never shut it down. Infintum is actually the 4th company running deposit system in Norway.
So this is trash collected on a beach on the west coast of Norway.
Worldwide, 8 million tons of plastic end up in the oceans each year. It's eaten by wildlife, and it's in our food chain. But in Norway, the deposit works. Surfers have seen the evidence pile up. Most bottles come from abroad.
So we have 2 Norwegian bottles, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 non-Norwegian bottles.
Where waste has value, there's less litter.
People also understand the other aspect of it, you know, that you're actually only borrowing the bottle. You're buying the content, but you're borrowing the bottle, and you have to give it back, because that's resources.
That message I think is very important. It's a one-way PET bottle, but it's a multi-way material. You can use it many, many times. And that's the efficiency as long as you have it in an efficient collection system and can recycle it. Extended producer responsibility is being applied to more and more products. It's not that many products actually that has EPR, but they are talking about EPR, But mostly when you look into EPR scheme up to now, still you don't cover the total cost. The new EU regulation for single-use plastic and the new target for collecting bottles in the EU is pointing in that direction. And also we have some other product, but it's not completely EPR that will say that the producer don't cover the total cost, and that's important. But in the deposit system in Norway, they actually do. So I give you some example, and also how can you give the manufacturer an efficient incentive to solve the resource problem? If you collect the material and reuse the material, it's very efficient, and you reduce the consumption of the resources. So what's actually the problem? Is it littering? Up to now, in Europe and all around, now we are focused on littering because you have the marine littering. You see that the whales and fish is dying because they have eaten all the plastic. But if you focus on resources, then you will solve the problem with the littering as well, because the problem is you focus on littering, you collect material, but what then? What should you do with the collected material? As we see now, we pick up a lot of plastic from the ocean, but we have a problem what to do with the plastic. It's not designed for recycling, it's not efficient in the value chain, not efficient in the circular economy. But if you focus on the resources and design everything that we make so it actually can be recycled in an efficient way, it's a total different story. So if you focus on the resources, what's the collection rate, how much of what you put into the market can you take back? And then of course the yield in the recycling process. How much of what you put into the market can you take back and reuse at some point? That's important because that has to do with the total efficiency. That's the circular economy. And then you have to add what's cost per unit, because if it's too costly, then you have a problem because no one will buy the product either. This is a very good hidden diamond, I would call it. Because in Norway, early in the 90s, we had the environmental minister, Torbjørn Berntsen. He had a problem because the industry would like to shift from refillable bottles to non-refillable bottle. And then the labor union and the environmental minister was afraid that this will become a littering problem. So they established environmental cost model. They said that, check here, if you have a product, put it on the market, but you don't collect it, then you have to pay a very high tax. If you convert aluminium into cans, beer cans, the environmental cost is actually 35,000 euro per ton. It's a very high tax. For the PET, it's 10,000 euro per ton. That's the cost if you don't have a collection system. Then the producer and retailer sat down and was discussing, okay, what should we do? We'd like to launch beer cans in Norway, but we need to collect them or else it's too expensive. We can't sell them to the consumer. So this model has been very efficient because they always, with this solution, they actually solved the problem with what we call the circular economy. And the reason is, when you have a circular economy model, you have to look into the total value chain. And I claim if you don't have a supplier and a buyer in each link in the value chain, it will never become circular economy. That's the biggest problem by far. You have heard it today several times. If someone knows who will buy my product, I will be happy. But it costs a little bit more because you include the environmental costs in the end product. So there is a problem. You have to focus, how can you solve this? And then it's interesting because when they have a deposit system, this has become a 100% producer responsibility product since 1999. When you buy a PET bottle or a can in Norway, all collection cost is included in the product when you buy it the first time. We are responsible and we cover all the costs through the value chain. We cover the cost for the shop to buy the RVM. We have all the logistics. We run the operation with sorting and baling and shipment to the recycler. That's included when you buy the product first time. And this is because we had some bold politician early 90s that decided that if you don't set up an efficient collection system, it will cost you. It will cost you a lot. And therefore we have a very efficient deposit system in Norway because the producer and retailer, they decided themselves, we want a deposit system or else we can't sell the product because the taxation will be too high. In all other countries around the world, with the deposit system, it's been a political decision. They said, we want a deposit system. And then they forced the industry and the producer to set up a system. They did that in Germany. It's not very cost efficient because the industry, they would like to prove that this was a stupid idea. After some years, they decided that actually was not that bad idea, but then it takes time to shift from a stupid system to a better system. We didn't have that problem in Norway because it was actually the industry itself that's established the system. Because the politician didn't bother what type of system they was going to establish, but they told them, if you don't collect, it will cost. End of story. Now we have this little problem with the plastic. It's so cheap to use virgin plastic. So, and I claim that we have 10 to 15% recycled content. All material that we collect will be reused. But today, it's spread around Western Europe because a lot of countries without the deposit system, they would like to get hold of recycled material. So they buy some, and the consumer are not aware when the producer are bragging about we are using recycled content. They don't ask, are you using the amount you should use? Are you using 80% that you should use? Because they are happy as long as they see the world recycled material. So what we are working towards the politician now, we would like to introduce a material tax. We say if you sell a PET bottle or a can with zero content recycled material, then you have to pay. If you have 50%, then you have to half the cost. And this we do on behalf of the producer in Norway. Coke, Carlsberg, Ringnes, all of them agree with this model and said, if we establish this, then we will even have the problem with the competition in the market. The problem is that the biggest producer, even they have problem to buy all the collected material because it costs a little bit more. And if the competitors don't do that, then they have a more expensive product. So the politicians need to help the industry to speed up. And with this model, that will actually happen rather quickly. Then we will reach 50, 60, 70% recycled content within a few years. The other interesting part with this model that in Norway we had a competition between the different collection systems. So we actually had to compete. We had to be more cost efficient than the municipality waste handling system, the green dot system, or the curbicide system. Because then we can prove, and the producer, they choose to be member of Infinitum. That's actually voluntary in Norway. They can choose to sell the product without the deposit mark, but they save a lot of money by joining the deposit system. That's in comparison with all the other countries where you're obliged. You have to go into the deposit system. You can't choose, more costly system. Plastic in the DRS gives the lowest carbon footprint and highest reuse capability. What's very important when you have a deposit system, we report everything, we go public with our figures, and that's because we think it's important to discuss what's actually happening in the market. And the reason also is that we have been competing with the green dot system, and we had a visitor from abroad. They also ask us, we have a very efficient municipality waste handling system. The problem with those systems, they are measuring on tonnage. And now EU had set up a new target and say, no, we are going to measure what you actually put into the recycling process after you wash out the label and the residues. And this is interesting because Belgium, they claim 95% collection rate of plastic. That's this type of plastic. So the EU regulation is really important, and it will boost up the discussion about what we actually are working with. What are we collecting? What can we achieve from what we collect? Interesting part when Belgium, they have 95% collection of plastic, but they can't reach the new EU target by 30% recycled content in all plastic. Collect 95% and you can't reuse 30%. What's wrong with the figures? It's interesting.
An empty bottle is full of energy, enough to use a tennis ball machine for more than an hour.
Is there anyone that's seen this before? What's the message here? The message is the difference between putting the empty bottle into the garbage bin, into incineration and get out the energy by energy recovery, or putting it into the RVM and recycle the material. That's 1 hour for a tennis ball machine. We started to make this film in 2014-15, and the reason was that we get a lot of questions from young people. They asked us, you tell us that we should deposit. Why should we deposit? Then we did the calculation. We had done 4 LCA studies to actually prove what we can achieve when you have an efficient deposit system. So this is the message. This is the difference between putting it into garbage bin with energy recovery or put it into an RVM, reverse vending machine, and recycle the material. So this is the figure from this report. And here you see the blue stack here. That's the production of the bottle. The gray one is the transport. The yellow one, that's the running of the reverse vending machine. And here you see the green one. That's the efficiency when you start using the material that we collect. Of course, we have very good control because we check all the bottles before they are allowed into the deposit system. So we know that we have top quality on the material. That's what we can achieve. And with our collection rate and yield in the recycling process, we could supply the market with 80% recycled content today. And that's very important that we managed to set up a model so we actually know that all the Norwegian producer and importer can use the material. That's why we work with this material tax. Another topic, this is for the logistics. When you read LCO report, they always say that the transport is neglectable, and of course it's neglectable because it's a very small part of the total. But when we have to shut down Oslo Center because the emission of particle during the winter time, then we said it's important to actually look into the logistics as well, and then we see that the deposit system is actually more efficient than the municipality waste handling system when you pick up the garbage at home. This is also important. When you do a life cycle analysis, you only have one trip. So we had to work with the consultant that worked this report. I said, we would like to have the effect, what's happening when you can collect the material and use 80% again, and then 80% of 80% of 80% of 80%. Then you know actually, even after 50 trips, you will see parts of the first bottle. This is per functional unit. This is the amount of bottle you need to sell 1,000 liters of beverages. So instead of running the system with 22,000 tons of PET, if we manage, or when we manage to get the producer to use all the collected material that we have, then we can run the system with 4,400 tons annually with PET. That's saving of resources. That's important, and that's what we can achieve, and we can achieve that in a lot of different areas if we focus to set up the circular economy in an efficient way, and then you have to focus on the supplier and the buyer in all links in the value chain. This is another way just to show it. EU, they have set up a new target, said 30% recycled content in 2029. We are at 80% today. If I collect all the bottles, we will achieve 92% recycled content in the bottle. Then we can sell 12,500 liters of beverage with the initial 36 kilo, 1,000 liter bottle. 12.5 times. That's the reuse of the material. That's the efficiency you can achieve when you have an efficient supply chain and control of the material. This is the saving when you have this system. Let's see, I have short again. But I just have to pick up this from Jasper. If you remember his start today. More with less, more than once, utilize better, cleaner. We had the answer. Now you know what to do. That's good. But I think this is important because you need to focus on this. How can you set up a value chain and work with this through the whole value chain? And then we have a small topic. This is a famous hydropower plant in Norway. So someone knows which is this? Yes?
I grew up 60 kilometers up.
Okay, that's good. Then you know all about it. What's happened was when this whale stranded, dead whale with a stomach full of plastic bags, then the environmental organization said, can they please get back the glass bottle? We should stop using PET bottle and can. But the difference between using glass bottle or using the PET bottle and can we use today, we're saving annually 2,640 gigawatt hours. That's 4 hydropower plants like this. This is the efficiency when we use the plastic. So it's no solution to go back to glass bottle, and this is important. And the wine monopoly in Norway, they have now decided that all wine cheaper than 15 euro should be on PET bottle in the deposit system. The wine monopoly in Norway, they shut down the deposit system in 2004. Now they have become new members of Infinitum. And it's very interesting, and I love to talk about this to all the foreigners that we have. But you can see the saving on the CO2 emission is very high when you have glass bottle, and the efficiency when you have PET bottle is actually the most efficient packaging material. Aluminium is also very efficient, but it's very important to collect and recycle aluminium because it demands so much energy when you produce it the first time. This is the last film. Thank you.
Vi nordmenn liker å fortelle at vi er født med ski på beina. I så fall er vi ikke det eneste, for verden er full av gode skikjørere. Jeg tenker mer at vi er født med panting i hendene. For det norske folk, vi er faktisk best i verden i panting. Ja, ingen er flinkere enn oss. Og premien for den innsatsen er større og mye mer betydningsfull enn noe jeg har vunnet. Premien er ren natur og en verden vi kan leve i. Jeg er stolt av at nordmenn har et så bevisst forhold til verdien av panting. At vi bruker huet og tenker fremover. Pant alt, det har en verdi.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.